How do we handle the situation where we want a client to connect to a VPN gateway, but if that gateway is down, we also would like that client to be aware of other VPN gateways? And one solution to implementing that is to configure our Palo Alto firewalls as gateways themselves, but to also use a feature called a portal. And in this portal information, we can push down, the first time a VPN client connects, we can push down additional details regarding other potential gateways, as well as the priorities for those gateways, which can allow us to dynamically train our Global Protect clients on additional resources that they can reach for further VPN connections. So in this nugget, we'll take a look at how to configure the gateway and portal features on the Palo Alto. To configure the gateway itself, as well as the details for the portal, which can push information to clients such as what other gateways are reachable, those are both done under the network section on the Palo Alto firewall. So without further ado, let's take a look at the configuration of the gateway function on our Palo Alto in our lab, and we'll also configure a portal associated with this gateway. So here in the GUI, let's go to the Network tab, and then over on the left, we've got a section for Global Protect. So let's configure the gateway details regarding our firewall first, and then we'll set up the portal. So with gateways selected, we'll click on Add. So let's call this GP-Gateway 1. And the interface on this gateway that we're going to be using is the interface on the outside. Specifically, it's going to be interface 1/1 that's in the outside zone, and we only have one IP address to choose from, and that is the one associated with that interface. And now it's asking us for an SSL/TLS service profile. From the dropdown, you'll notice we don't have one yet, but we do have a hyperlink that allows us to create an SSL/TLS service profile right here. So let's create a new profile. We'll call this our SSL profile. And the big thing we need to identify here is which certificate do we want to use. And we have our identity certificate that we got from our certificate authority called PA-SSL, and that's the certificate that we want to use. And we enrolled and did our CSR and got that certificate in a previous nugget in this course. So we'll select that certificate, and this is saying we'll do everything from TLS 1.0 to max, which is fine, and we'll go ahead and click on OK. So it automatically put that new profile that we just created right there, which says to use that certificate. Next, under authentication, we're going to select our authentication profile. So we'll select our authentication profile, also previously created in our course up to this point. And then we can have an authentication message as well. I'm going to leave that as the default. And instead of just clicking on OK, I want to go ahead and click over here on client configuration as well. So over here on the left, still under the Global Protect Gateway settings, let's click on client configuration. And I want to specify tunnel mode for this SSL VPN. And the tunnel interface is now asking us for, we can select from the drop-down list. We're going to select tunnel 6783, which is the tunnel interface that's associated with the VPN zone on our firewall. So we'll select tunnel.6783, and we don't need to enable IPsec on this. We'll just do purely SSL. And then we'll go over to network settings, which is the third tab over from the left. So if we click on network settings, we get to specify on this gateway, when a client does connect, what are we going to do? For example, are we going to give them an IP address? And here we're going to go ahead and click on Add, and let's go to Network Settings. And what we want to do here is we want to specify the pool of addresses or the range of addresses that we want to give these virtual private network clients that are coming in. So down here in the IP pool section, we'll click on Add, and let's go ahead and put in 10.3.3.0/24. We could also put in ranges. For example, let's do that. Let's go ahead and put a range instead. Let's do 10.3.3.51 through 10.3.3.100. And what that means is once this is committed and applied, that when a VPN client comes in, it will be assigned a logical IP address from this range of 10.3.3.51 through 10.3.3.100. It'll also cause the firewall to place a route for that subnet in its routing table so it can reach it. Now, if we go back to our diagram and we ask the question, okay, Keith, well, where exactly is the 10.3.3 network? It is all just here in logic. It's not a physical network. So we have a 10.1.1 network, which is the inside. We have a 10.2.2 network, which is the DMZ. And this logical network that we're now creating and going to be assigning to our VPN clients is on 10.3.3. And because the Palo Alto firewall is creating that logical network, it can also route, for example, between 10.1.1 and 10.2.2 and 10.3.3, assuming that we have security policies in place to allow that interzone traffic if those three networks end up in separate zones, which they will. So here's the inside zone right here. Here's the DMZ, and this logical interface, the tunnel interface, and the VPN user's IP address that they're going to be getting is going to be in the VPN zone. All right, so going back to the interface. Once we have the pool there, we're also going to specify what we're willing to route between. Now, this isn't a security question. This is a routing question. So over here in the access route section, we're going to enter the subnets that need to be accessed by these clients. So if we want our VPN clients to be able to reach the 10.11 subnet or the 10.22 subnet, which is our DMZ, we want to go ahead and add those right here so that the Palo Alto firewall will know, at least from a reachability and connectivity perspective, it's okay to route traffic between those networks. So we'll add some routes. We'll click on add and we'll do 10.1.1.0/24, which at the moment is one of our networks on the inside zone. And we'll click on add again, and let's add the DMZ as well at 10.2.2.0/24. And then we'll go ahead and click on OK. And look at that. It will not let me click OK. So up here in the user/group tab, it has that red underline implying that something is not quite right or not quite complete. So let's go back to the user/user group tab. And what is missing here is simply a name. So we'll call this our Global Protect client config. Now it's happy, and we'll click on OK. As we work our way to the right, the next tab over is Network Services. And we can specify here, for example, if we had an internal DNS server, we could go ahead and identify that 10.1.1.111. And I happen to have a DNS server at that IP address on the 10.1.1 subnet. And then we could do a backup of 8.8.8.8. If we're doing NetBIOS name resolution with a Win server, we could go ahead and put that in as well. And we could put a DNS suffix like nuglab.local. And these are just properties that would be associated with the client that's connecting with the virtual IP address that it's receiving. So what have we done here? We've set up the tunnel settings by specifying the interface, specifying tunnel mode. We disabled IPsec for the moment. Under network settings, we created a GP client config specifying the pool of address we should give the IP addresses from, as well as the access routes. And for network services, we supplied basic information for the benefit of name resolution. And if we go back up to the general tab, we also specified the interface and IP address and the certificate that the gateway should use for those SSL VPNs as they try to connect and establish sessions. We also specify the authentication profile that we want to use to validate the username and password of a user like Bob who is attempting to authenticate. So with those in place, we'll go ahead and click on OK. So that's regarding the gateway itself. So the second piece is a Global Protect portal. So still under network, on the left-hand side under Global Protect, selecting portals, let's go ahead and click on add to add a portal. So we'll call it GP-portal. And in our infrastructure, we've got one gateway that's going to have one portal. So this may not be too exciting, but we'll go ahead and we'll specify the interface of 1/1, which is our interface that's part of the outside zone that connects out towards the internet. The IP address hasn't changed since we set up the gateway. And the profile is going to be our SSL profile. For the authentication profile, we're going to go ahead and specify our authentication profile. We're not requiring client certificates. So for the first part of our portal configuration, we're set. Next, we'll go to the agent configuration. Now, the agent is a part of the Global Protect client that is going to be residing, for example, on Bob's computer as he connects from the internet. So regarding agent configuration that can be pushed down to Bob's computer running the Global Protect client, if we click on add, let's call this agent config, and we're not going to use Windows single sign-on. Now, if we were authenticating on machines that are already part of the domain inside of our company, and we are already authenticated with single sign-on, we could save our users a step. But for our demonstration, we're going to have a computer that's connecting from the outside that's not participating or not currently active as a member of the domain. And for the connect method, instead of saying user logon always on, I'm going to go ahead and say on demand, which means the user has to initiate the connection. So that way in our lab environment, we can turn it on or turn it off at will. Here at user and group, we can lock it down to specific groups that are able to go ahead and authenticate. The default is any. I'm going to leave it as that. And then I'll click on gateways. And because we only have one external gateway to the outside world, I'm going to go ahead and click on add and specify what the name and IP address is of that external gateway, which is our firewall that's in the lab. We'll call it our firewall, and the address is 192.168.1.250. And you might ask, okay, Keith, what's the benefit of adding, external gateways? The cool thing is this: if a client connects And the agent then downloads a list of potential gateways. With the knowledge of multiple gateways, we have some fault tolerance. So if we can't reach one gateway, we can go to another. We also have the ability of prioritization. So the agent running on the Global Protect client can make a conscious choice to go to one gateway as opposed to another. And all of this can be pushed down once the client initially connects to a gateway and is learning about and getting this information from the portal pushed down to the client. And then we have some additional options with the agent and data collection tabs. But for the basic setup, we're good. Under General, we've taken off single sign-on. The connect method is on demand. And for users and groups, we're allowing anybody to try. And the gateway is our one external gateway at .250. So we'll click on OK. Now, because this information is going to be pushed down to the agents that are running on the PCs that are connecting, if we wanted to go ahead and specify a specific trusted root CA, we could. And in our environment, if we click on Add, and we have the root Microsoft CA cert right there, because that's the CA that signed the identity certificate that the Palo Alto Firewall is using, if the Global Protect agent running on the client's PC trusts that CA and can verify certificates issued by that CA, that's going to make our jobs a lot easier, especially in a lab environment where we don't have a real CA server that everybody's browsers automatically trust. So with that in place, we'll go ahead and click on OK. And then we'll click on Commit and confirm the commit. In this nugget, we've walked through the steps of setting up the Global Protect gateway as well as the portal configuration on the Palo Alto Firewall. In our next nugget, we'll take a look at how we can train the Palo Alto Firewall to hand out the Global Protect software to potential VPN clients so they can start using that software. So until then, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.